It was more risky to work for somebody else than me doing it myself. Because a lot of people think it's risky to invest in real estate. It's only risky if you have no clue what you're doing. If you know what you're doing, if you know how a business model works, then you're going to be fine.
Welcome to Truly Passive Income. I'm Neil Henderson.
And I'm Clint Harris. And today's guest is Dustin Heiner. He's a real estate investor, entrepreneur, and founder of Master Passive Income. After being laid off from his job, Dustin built a real estate business that allowed him to achieve financial independence and quit his 9-to-5. Now he helps others create passive income through rental properties, empowering them to design their life around their goals, not their job. Justin, welcome to Truly Passive Income. You and I met at the Quest Expo in Texas, briefly got a chance to connect. You were wearing that iconic shirt that I bet, Neil, you would be wearing again today that says successfully unemployed. It caught my attention then. It's doing it again now. So I'm excited to unpack your story. Welcome. How are you today?
I am very blessed. I really appreciate you guys having me on the show. Yeah, being a real estate investor, I started investing back in 2006. I had so many properties eventually, buying one after another of rentals, that I didn't have to work anymore. And then I quit my job and started telling people that I was retired. And people would ask me, like, what do you do with your time? And I was like, well, I do plenty of other things. I start businesses and stuff. And so I now have the term that I like to use is successfully unemployed. Basically, I found a way to make money to provide for myself and my family without working for somebody else or trading hours for dollars. And that's through real estate investing. Now I just, go to the gym, hang out with the family, come on podcasts and talk to great people like you. So thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. So let's unpack that a little bit. I want to hear this story. You walk us through the turning point where you realized that real estate investing could lead to financial independence or being successfully unemployed for you.
Yeah. So I was following what we're all taught, the same path in life, and I'm following it to the letter. So basically, you go to school, you get good grades, and you take those good grades and you go to college or university and you get in thousands and thousands of dollars into debt, and you hopefully get a piece of paper or a degree is what it's called, and you go to companies or businesses and you try to find a career and then work 40 plus years of your life and then retire at 65, 70 years old and live on what you managed to save that entire time you're working. I call it a JOB, a just over broke job. Well, I'm doing that exact same thing. In fact, I get the most stable, secure job you could ever think of. I'm working doing technology in the local county government in California. Those three things are not going away. Technology, government, and California. They're not going away. So I get the most stable, secure job because I wanted to make sure I had, a comfortable life that I've been taught. But at the same time, I started a couple businesses. I had a newspaper route. That's where you ride on a bike and throw newspapers at 5 o'clock in the morning, bang them on garage doors. Had a graphic website design company, skateboard manufacturing business, even a convenience store and pizzeria. I start from the ground up. And so even though I did those, I bought one rental property. And that one rental property made me, I want to say it was like $350 a month in passive income. And I knew I needed to be an investor. But guys, you know what happens? Life started getting in the way. I knew I needed to be an investor, but my wife and I started having kids. But this is the story. This is what really shoved me and got me to invest in real estate. Well, we started having kid after kid after kid. Eventually, we had our fourth child. And I'm working a sit-down, normal desk job at the local county government. And I go on paternity leave when my wife has our fourth child. And I come back after 2 weeks. And on a Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon, I get a call from my boss's secretary, like the top dog. And she says, Dustin, would you please come to the office? I said, sure. And I hung up the phone. I paused for a second. I thought, why in the world did they call me in the office? Like, this isn't normal. And I've seen plenty of movies. Friday at 3:30 is not a good sign. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking back a couple months before I went on paternity leave, there was some rumors or some rumbling going on that there could potentially be layoffs in the county. I immediately shook it off. I said, there's no way. I've been here for 15 years. My bosses think I do a great job. So I get up and I walk down the hallway to my boss's office. Now, this hallway isn't very long. In fact, it's kind of short. But every single step that I took, it felt like the hallway got longer and longer and longer. And it felt like my feet became lead bricks because the weight of potentially losing my job was starting to weigh down on me. Well, I get down the hallway and I turn the corner and I see my boss's door. His door is closed. And I see his secretary there, super sweet, nice old lady. She says, Dustin, would you please have a seat? And I said, sure. And I go sit down, and she's kind of consoling me with her eyes, trying to sheepishly grinning at me because she knows everything about what's going on. I know nothing about what's going on. I go and I take my seat. And I start thinking about my life. If I get laid off right now or I lose my job, did I just waste my life following the plan that somebody else told me? And then I thought, oh my goodness, we just had our 4th child. If I don't have this job, I can't feed my family. Does that make me a failure as a father? Does that make me a failure as a man trying to provide for his family? Well, as I'm sitting there, my hands get all clammy. My forehead gets all sweaty because the nerves are just crushing me. Well, the door to my boss's office opens up, and out walks a coworker of mine with a piece of paper in her hands. She is noticeably distraught, noticeably upset, not necessarily crying, but you could tell her world has been rocked. She passes by me, and my boss says, Dustin, would you please come in the office? So I get up and I go into his office and I get laid off. And remember, this is the government. Nobody gets fired or laid off from the government, but I did. And this is the reason why I tell the story. So I take that layoff notice and I go back and I sit down at my desk and I realize 2 things. Number one, after just getting laid off, sitting in that chair, I need to make money to provide for my family. I need to get another job. So praise the Lord, I was blessed to find another job in the same county. Another department wasn't having the issues. So check, got that done. The second thing, sitting in that chair, I realized I need to make sure that this never, ever happens to me again. I need to make sure that nobody has the ability to take away my ability to feed my family. So right then and there, sitting in that chair, I said, no longer will I ever tell anybody when they ask me the question, what do you do? I would normally reply with my job. Oh, I work for the county doing IT. Now on, I will always tell everybody I am an investor. That's who I am because I'm now projecting out to the world that now I'm an investor. It may so happen that 100% of my money comes from my job. That's now my part-time job. I am a full-time investor. So fast forward the story. Started buying property after property after property, each one making me $250 minimum. Some are making me $500, $600, $700 a month in passive income or more. Eventually I had 30 plus properties and I realized, my goodness, I don't need to work anymore because I have properties that make me money without me doing a thing. So last part of the story, I went to my new boss, good boss and all, and I said, hey boss, here's your layoff notice. I'm laying you off. And we laughed and he says, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, I am not going to do anything. I own real estate that makes me money without even working. So last part of the story, I would walk to and from my job every day. 1,000 times, did 1,000 times, 1.5 miles every day because I worked in downtown, too frugal to pay for parking close. The last time I walked away from my job, I felt like I was walking on clouds because I knew I would never, ever need a job again. And everybody, this is the reason why I tell a story. You need to realize this. Your boss, the only reason why you're getting paid what you're paid is because that's what's keeping you there without taking more money out of their pocket. What I mean is you're worth so much more than anybody could ever pay you. And this is how you'll know. Your boss is paying you just enough to keep it working without quitting, but not so much money it takes money out of their pocket. If they did, they would lose money. So what I suggest is you start getting truly passive income. You start making money where you work one time and you get paid over and over and over again. For me, real estate, I now have 30 plus properties, short-term, long-term, medium-term properties. I own hotels. I have apartment complexes. I have all this real estate that now comes and makes me money, so I literally do not have to work. So I'll pause the story because you probably got plenty of questions.
Isn't it so funny where so many people take the quote unquote safe route of getting a good education and the good job? And ultimately, it's only as safe as it is convenient for your employer, right? Ultimately, it comes down to it. There can be one contracting decision, one rounding error, whatever it may be. Your safe, secure job is an illusion, right? It's really not that way. You're a victim of circumstance, and you're trading your life away, usually to pay for someone else's days off. And when it gets taken away from you, it's typically the worst time, right? Like I had a 16-year career in medical sales, and I was killing the game. I did 5 surgeries one Friday. I had 3 more scheduled for Monday morning. I was way ahead of plan. I was crushing it. My company made some bad decisions and ended up having 3 rounds of layoffs. And I got laid off in the first round, standing in line at the grocery store with diapers in my hands, with a toddler at home, and my wife was 23 weeks pregnant.
And a brand new mortgage.
And a brand new house that we had just closed on 2 months before. and got let go after 16 years. And I had immediately opportunity to jump in with some competitors at a higher salary and ended up not doing it to be a full-time real estate investor because I realized the same thing that you did, Dustin, is, you're trading your time for money, and you're only going to have that quote unquote security as long as it's convenient for your employer and you're trusting those people higher up the food chain to make good decisions for the company. And if not, your head is the one that's going to roll. And the reality is it's never as safe as you think it is unless you put yourself in a position where you're in the driver's seat, which typically means not trading time for money. So
I found it was more risky to work for somebody else than me doing it myself. Because a lot of people think it's risky to invest in real estate. It's only risky if you have no clue what you're doing. If you know what you're doing, if you know how a business model works, then you're going to be fine. Just give a quick example of if you know it works, it works. So let's say you're going to buy a candy bar for 50 cents and you knew all day, every day you could sell it for $1. Well, you're going to make 50 cents every single time because you know the business model. Same thing with real estate investing. But here's the great thing about real estate investing. You guys know this. Even if you didn't have the 50 cents, let's say it took you 25 cents to borrow 50 cents. Now you're out of pocket 75 cents. You still sell it for $1. You're making 25 cents every single time you sell a candy bar. That's what I'm talking about is it's more risky when you put your life in somebody else's hands as opposed to having your own business that creates you money and makes you money even when you are sleeping.
So because of your economies of scale and the amount of cash that you're making off of each project, obviously you had a recapitalization strategy in place. So I'm assuming you were using the BRRRR strategy?
Yeah, back in 2006, when I first started investing, I bought my first property. It was kind of funny enough. I got married and I wasn't taught to save money. My wife was. So she had like $15,000 when we got married. And 6 months later, I said, hey, honey, can I take the money you saved and go buy our first property? So we bought our first property and then that started cash flowing. And then I refinanced that property, pulled the cash out to then buy the next property. And then I've literally recycled my money over and over and over again. And then every penny that I made in all these properties went to buy more properties. And that sped up the entire process much faster.
Now, how did you survive the Great Recession?
Oh my goodness. I actually thrived. I'll jump right into it. I actually thrived. When I saw there was a bad thing, the economy's going really, really bad. I saw lots of people going bankrupt, lots of real estate investors, like everything is going bad for them. I didn't know what I was doing, but one thing I did know was that if I bought a house that had appreciation, because that's what they were telling you back in 2006. Oh, buy a house, it'll double in a year, and then you could sell it and make a lot of money. I thought, well, what if I can't sell it, number one? But if it goes up in value, I can't actually eat appreciation. But what I can eat or pay for food for my family is the cash flow. So I only focused on cash flow from all my properties. And here's the amazing thing. Because of how I invest, I make money if the market goes up, if the market goes down, or if the market goes sideways, because just like that candy bar analogy, I do not buy a house, I do not buy a property unless it's going to continually make me money on the first day. And I suggest a minimum of $250 a month. And one property at $250 a month, that's $3,000 a year in passive income. 10 properties is $2,500 a month, $30,000 a year. 20 properties is $5,000 a month, $60,000 a year. And so because of that, I made so much more money. And one quick last thing I'll share is that I made more money as all these quote unquote real estate investors were going broke. The sad thing was people were losing their homes. They're foreclosing on their homes. Well, what does that to the pool of renters? They have to live somewhere. And so the pool of renters went up. And so I made even more money because I was investing for cash flow, basically adding up all my expenses for a property, making sure I could rent it for a minimum of $250 a month. That's a minimum. I have some properties making me $1,000+ a month in passive income. And that is what saved me throughout the entire 2008, 9 to 10. And then I was just buying as many as I could because I knew the business model worked.
So typically when we see people trying to scale single family properties or smaller properties, obviously you got to recapitalize by having either forced or natural appreciation to push up the value so that you can recapitalize by way of refinance. It is going to cannibalize your cash flow, But the idea is in a low interest rate environment, you can still cash flow $200-300 a month. You take that capital and you move on to the next property. Typically throughout the life cycle of investing, oftentimes we see that investor eventually move on to usually small multifamily, hotels, whatever, and you get into commercial assets because once you get over 4 units, like what's the value of an individual single family house? The value is the bricks and the sticks and what the person next door paid for theirs. It's a comp-based economy, right? So you got a BPO or a broker price opinion or a CMA, a comparative market analysis, is establishing the value of the bricks and sticks and what the person next door paid for their property. Once you get over 4 units, you get into the commercial real estate space. The value of a commercial property is tied to the net operating income. So if you have anything you can do that can either increase the rents or decrease the expenses, maximizes the net operating income and drastically increases the value of the property. One of the examples that someone told that Ryan Smith, a friend of ours, told Neil and I is that he uses the example of taking his kids to the Walmart parking lot and asking them to get out and walk around and pick up change until they find $1. And they're not interested in that at all until he says, look, if you find $1, I'll give you $240. And the lesson that he eventually unpacks is, at the time, the market was trading at a 5 cap. A cap is the capitalization rate for a commercial property. And if you find a way to add $1 to your net operating income per month to a property, at a 5 cap, the value of that property goes up by $240. The cap rate is a multiplier. So a lot of times what we see, people that have struggled to scale with single families, which you've clearly done very well with, eventually moves into the commercial real estate space and from there continues to move on. And a lot of times it's small multifamily. And then eventually those people realize once you get over, say, 50 units or more, you can have an on-site property manager and some of the fixed overhead expenses go down. It's very easy for me to see how you've had a lot of success early with single family rentals, that would be the space where you would live. But you've also told me that you have a couple different commercial assets. So how has your strategy evolved? Are you using the commercial real estate side of things because it's so much easier to, I don't want to say manipulate, but it's so much easier to create forced appreciation on the commercial side of things, which you can recapitalize by way of refinance. So compared to how you started, what are you doing now and kind of what's your future that you're looking for down the road?
Yeah, so I basically came up with, and it's very, very simple. I came up with my brand is Master Passive Income. So the Master Passive Income roadmap for real estate investors. And this roadmap, it walks everybody through the process. And really, if you boil it down, it's basically playing Monopoly. If you think about playing Monopoly as a kid, you buy land, then you get a house, and then you get more houses, and eventually you get to hotels. You keep upgrading, you keep getting into larger deals. And that's the roadmap that I follow, as well as teach all my students. I've got thousands of students now. But anyways, the process is you start small, and then you buy your first property. Let's say you buy a single family home. Then that single family home, you prove that concept to yourself, like, yes, it actually works. And then you get a little stuck. You're like, well, how do I duplicate that? How do I do it again? Then you move on to the next step. That's where you build a business. And I'd always, in fact, this is what I teach all the time is even though we're real estate investors, what we are is business owners. We have a business that we own. And in that business, our inventory is our real estate. It could be multifamily, it could be single family homes, whatever it might be, but that's our business. So from there, you start acquiring more properties, and then you need to scale. So you go from a beginner, then you become a business owner, and that's when you scale to multiple properties, but it goes from small deals to larger deals. Let's say you start getting 4-unit apartment complexes. Maybe you start getting it to 5 to maybe 10 units. So you get to medium-sized deals, but each time you get to this next step, there's always headaches that come. Let's say, how do we scale? How do we get enough money? How do we make sure we have enough people to work on the property? And then once you get past the business owner phase, once you get to 25 plus properties or units, let's just say units, not properties, but units, let's say 5 unit here, a 10 unit there, 4 unit there, 1 unit there, then you become an investor, an expert. And in this expert stage, so there's 3 stages. There's beginner, the business owner, and then the expert. And the expert is now diversifying into different asset classes. It could be mobile home parks. It could be hotels, storage facilities, apartment complex, you name it. Even investing in notes, being like a bank and lending money and having your money make money on its own. But then once you're in that phase, then you need to protect your wealth. You need to keep the IRS, taxman from taking it, other people from taking it. Then you need to create generational wealth, know how to pass it on to your kids. So this entire path is what I've followed. And I literally now, like I said, I'm a 355 unit apartment complex that I just bought, closed in June in near Nashville at 30 plus properties, hotels, like all this stuff. As best I can, I'm going to pass, especially my single family homes, very easy to pass those down. Generational wealth. I have 5 kids now. Pass them down to all my 5 kids and teach them how to do it. So that's what I follow and teach all my students to follow is the investor roadmap. We start small, but then we get to medium-sized deals, and then we get to large deals, and then we get to really, really big deals.
You've talked a lot about aligning your investments with your personal goals and what you call investor DNA. How did you discover your own investing DNA, and how has that guided the decisions you've made in your business?
See, that's a great question. I'm going to answer it in 2 parts, for me and then for other people. So for me, my investor DNA, it really comes down to risk tolerance. If you figure out whatever your DNA is, it's do I have enough tolerance for risk to cash up my entire 401k, my retirement plan, which I did. That was my risk tolerance. I literally cashed it all out because I knew even with that penalty of cashing it out, I would be able to make hands down, so much more money in real estate because I know my business model. I know how to capture equity when I buy the property. I know how to force appreciation up. I know how to make cash flow. I know how to have tax benefits, all these great things for real estate investing, but that was my risk tolerance. Then there are other people, let's say other students, like their DNA would be, you know what? I don't feel like it's the best idea to cash out my entire 401k. Instead, what can I do? And I tell them, well, you can, just like we all met at Quest Trust Expo, where we talk about using your retirement account to invest in real estate because that's their risk tolerance. I have countless students that uses Quest, and they invest with their retirement account in real estate that they'll have when they retire. So my personal, I guess, DNA or my risk tolerance is I keep moving forward and keep using leverage and equity. When I say leverage, using the equity in my properties to buy the next properties. Now, I will say my wife has a different investor DNA, different risk tolerance. When I was quitting my job, we had a good amount of loans. She said, if you're going to quit your job, we have all these loans. I need you to pay off a lot of the loans. I'm like, oh, then that's equity I can't use to buy more property. So I don't care. I need to have this stable security. So I'm blessed with 30 plus properties that I own, the single family homes, not the apartment complexes and hotels. But I think I have 3 mortgages on all of them. The rest are free and clear. And that's all literally cash flow because the cash just keeps running in. And I love the idea of passive streams of income. So streams of income is great. You want to try to get as many as you can. For me, all my streams of income, the other businesses that I own, I have that flow into my river of income, which is my real estate investing. That makes me the most money that I can literally pass it down to kids, give me my best, tax breaks and all the amazing benefits of real estate.
All right. So I started out my real estate investing career. First house was a duplex. I lived in one half, rented the other half, and lived there for free. I thought I was a genius. I thought I invented this concept. Turns out people have been doing it for 1,000 years. Then I built a small portfolio of 9 single-family homes that I was buying in the post-2008 crash. 9 single-family homes for me, and I accidentally burned once or twice and pulled the equity out. What I've found out is that a single family home is usually a headache once or twice a year. And then when I multiplied that by 9, it wasn't for me. And I unpacked that portfolio. I moved on to buying small multifamily, converting them to Airbnbs. We still have 14 Airbnbs now and a property management company. And then Neil and I are partnered on, we started buying old Kmart's grocery stores and warehouses and we converted them into storage. because I wanted to get away from tenants in kitchens and bathrooms, right? So here's an issue that I ran into is the property management side of things. You're calling this passive income. To be fair, this podcast is called Truly Passive Income, and joke is on us because there really is no truly passive income, even though most of our investors that invest in our deals are limited partners that are just placing capital. They still have to do their due diligence. They still have to get to know us and whatever. How passive it is on a scale, right? The idea is that you find a property manager and that they're going to handle everything for you for 10% of the gross potential rent or whatever it may be. In my experience, I had a problem where I originally started, I was quick to hire and slow to fire. And when it came to picking property managers, I had to learn how to be slow to hire and quick to fire. And my experience with property managers was this. I could take my time and find a really good one. I never had a string of more than about 3 years. If I had a really good property manager, eventually they get very busy. Some of them also have access to seeing the properties that the people that they are managing for are liquidating, and they will start buying their own properties. And over time, multiple times, I saw their property start to take precedent over the rest of the properties. And they didn't really want to manage properties for anyone else anymore. They just wanted to manage their own because they had their own portfolio. So if they're really good, they kind of trended in that direction. And that was the reason they eventually did not become good. Or they got burned out of dealing with bad tenants, and eventually they kind of wore out over a period of years and ended up doing something else. And I had this revolving door of trying to find a new property manager every few years. And you have to have multiple pillars, right? You have to have a property manager, you have to have the handyman, you have to have everything else. I don't know where your properties are, but if you have enough of them in the same area, it certainly helps because you have economies of scale and you are a large enough chunk of business for that property manager that they take you seriously because they don't want 30 properties walking away all at the same time. But talk to me about that, because that side of things is why I eventually decided single family was not for me. I've since graduated from multifamily. I'm unloading my multifamily Airbnbs right now and moving all in on storage in the future. But talk to me about that side of things, because I have a feeling there's something you're doing right that makes it look or feel easier for you than it is for other people that may not have the right strategy of picking the right property manager or putting those pieces in place.
I've found that starting a business or creating a business is really the only way to go when you're going to be investing in real estate. When I call people like a mom and pop investor, beginner investor, they think they're going to do everything themselves, and they try to. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad, but the quicker they can get to where they become a business owner, they build a business first. Now, back in 2006, I was just like every employee does, we watch TV late at night. So I was watching TV late at night, and there was an infomercial came on. This quote unquote real estate guru said, "Hey, we're coming to your town, free 2-hour seminar." I said, "Great." I went to that free 2-hour seminar, and it was horrible. It was all hype, all sales pitch. They said it's normally $1 million for this 2-day seminar, but it's $1,000 a day. Run to the back. So I ran to the back, and I went to that 2-day seminar too. More hype in this next 2-day seminar, and sales pitch for another $80,000 course, a $50,000 course. It was horrible, but I did take what little they taught me and implemented it, and realized that after doing just like what you just said, I hired fast and fired slow, which was the bad thing. I had my property manager stealing from me within the first 6 months. It was absolutely horrible because I didn't know what I was doing. I just jumped into it. And if I would have just hung my head and say, it doesn't work, and move on and not go back to it, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. But remember, at the very beginning, I shared that I started businesses. I love starting businesses. What I realized was it has to work. Maybe I just did something wrong. And then I realized the weak link, just like you were just saying, was my property manager. Just like if you're starting any business, if you have any employee that's a manager, eventually they might move on, eventually they might not do well, whatever it might be, but you work really, really hard to hire the right property manager. Let me give you a quick example of what this looks like. If you boil everything down, this is my business model that I've built and done this. I invest in Texas, Ohio, Arizona, Tennessee, and Indiana. I have all these different states that I invest in, but I literally only work 30 minutes a month. That's literally just to get my property management statements, make sure everything looks good and put it aside. Now I do have a little bit of work here and there, but it's very, very minimal because I hire experts. This is what kind of what it looks like. So even if you're doing a multifamily, let's say you're a 50 unit apartment complex, it's the same thing because we're business owners. Let's say you're going to start a convenience store, candy bars and soda machines and all that good stuff. Well, you would not sign a lease on a location, open the doors, and set a box of candy bars in there on the ground. You wouldn't do that. You go out of business in 2 seconds. What you would do, though, is you would build the business first. You get the gondolas, those are the shelving units that all the candy bars go on, the countertops, cold storage, bank accounts, cash registers, employees, insurance, everything in the business before you buy any inventory. Same thing with real estate investing. You build the entire business, and the key is hiring slow and firing fast, but you take your time before you buy a property. And then every piece of property you buy is a piece of inventory that you put into your business. So what I do is my property manager, just like a manager of a store, I interview dozens and dozens of property managers. And then I literally have a list of like 25 questions that I've gone through and created. And I also give to my students all the questions they should ask and the answers they should be looking for from these property managers to vet them out. And I interview them multiple times. Eventually, the cream starts rising to the top, and I have a list of 1, 2, and 3. My first choice, my second choice, and third choice of property managers. And if you do this backwards, like if you don't go this route, in fact, this is how my property manager started stealing from me within 6 months. I did it the wrong way, and I have countless people. They say, "Hey, Dustin, I bought this house, and I tried to get a property manager to manage the property, and they were all telling me they would not manage it because they'll get shot there." It's like, well, and you don't have an asset anymore. You have a liability. How much better, instead of saying, "Property manager, I bought this house, will you manage it?" They say, "No." You say, "Property manager," because you've already done all the work. You built the business. You haven't bought any properties yet. You say, "Property manager, I'm looking to buy this house. Will you manage it? How much will it rent for? What's the vacancy factor? What's the clientele like? And will you take it on?" And if they say no, then you don't buy the property, waste your time and money. If they do say yes, that's when you know how much it'll rent for, everything about the property. And to get back to the idea of the property manager, that is your quarterback. I take so long, painstaking time to find the property manager because my property managers, I love to stick with them forever and never talk to them because they make me money. I have one property manager I had for literally 12 years. Another one I've had for 5 years. Like I find them and I stick with them because I hire them well. But at the same time, the latter part is, let's say they start screwing up. I had one property manager, actually the one that I had for 12 years, they started getting too big, just like you were saying. And my property started taking a huge decline. I fired them fast. I said, "Hey, I gave them a couple chances. They weren't doing it. I said, okay, I'm done with you." And I moved on, found somebody else, my number 2 on the list or number 3. So that's how we do it, is we build the business, hire slow and fire fast, and make sure before we buy a property, we actually know who's going to manage it. But one quick last thing I'll say is if you buy a property before you find a manager, then you're going to have a lot of problems. But a lot of people say, "Well, Dustin, how do you afford a property manager?" I say, I don't afford a property manager. Like, I don't pay my property manager. I don't pay my taxes. I don't pay my insurance. I don't pay my mortgage. I don't pay for repairs. Like, I don't have to get a job to pay for all that. My tenants pay for all that because I account for all those expenses. And a property manager is an absolute expense that I must have accounted for. And then another quick expense that I'll just quickly share is my passive income. If I know I need to make $300 a month in passive income from a property or $500, that's an expense item that I put in there that I make sure that I account for. So round everything up, you build the business, find the experts who live on the ground that are going to do the work for you.
I think that's the importance of a lot of people look at this and look at what you've got now. And a lot of people think it's passive income. And I think that you have to make sure that people understand a lot of it is residual because you front loaded the work. You did a lot of the work up front to make it look passive. Like I own a property management company that manages my 14 listings and another 75, and it looks really passive. Well, we spent 2 years building it out. It wasn't passive at all. It looks like it now because people just see me getting owners distributions, but it's residual. And I think that, again, I think it alludes to the fact that at its core, down at the base, there really is no passive income. It just probably means that you front loaded the work and hopefully did it in an intelligent way, following a system like it sounds like what you've built. Let me ask you this. As you've talked a little bit about the scale and you've got multifamily and hotels and things like that, are those properties that you've done on your own, or have you gone into syndication either as a limited partner or general partner? Have you found that there's a path of least resistance of going into larger assets with partnership?
Larger assets with partnership is really the only way to go when you want to get into bigger deals. So the hotels, limited partner on those ones. The apartment complexes, general partner on those. If I boil everything down to what I'm good at, is I'm good with people. And if you realize that real estate is not about a property, like hear this right. Real estate's not about a property, and business is not about products. This is about people. Everything in life is about people. And so what I'm really good at is helping people, figuring out what they need. Say a seller asks the seller, like, what can I help you? How can I help you? And then see if I can get them what they want, and then I get what I want. So with these multifamily or the larger properties, definitely you need to have other people, because it's going to cost a lot of money. The 355 unit apartment complex we just bought, we had to raise, I think it was $12 million. And so we have to have a lot of people. Unless you have $12 million to buy the property, then you got to have other people. So at the same time, I don't want to do all the work in these properties. I'm better at connecting with people and not necessarily syndicating. I'm not saying syndicating is bad or it's not something that I don't do. What I do is I'm an investor, and occasionally I will have a deal that is a really good deal that I'll open up to other people and say, hey, like my podcast, I don't know, we're close to 2 million downloads now, and lots of people. We even started a conference because I have so many coaching students. So it's a conference everybody just comes to and has a great time. It's all about helping, not the sales pitch. But I have all these people that want to learn from me and be around me, that I eventually or occasionally I'll say, hey, I have a property that I'm a general partner on. If you want to invest with me, I'm not syndicating a deal. I'm not saying, hey, this is my job, and I'm not a flipper of real estate, because that's what syndicators kind of do. They get a property and they try to exit in 3 to 5 years, which is fine. But what I am, and as an investor, and occasionally I'll open up to other people. So that's what I personally love to do, is connect with people and help them get what they want. So if I have an investor that wants to make a good return, well, maybe I have a great property. If I have a seller that needs to exit quickly or whatever it might be, I figure out what they need and I help them get what they want.
I love it. I think that's a great place to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Dustin Heiner, this has been a great conversation. It's been great getting to know a little bit more about you after our interaction at Quest Expo. If any of our listeners want to reach out to you and find out more about what you're all about, where would be the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, totally. Would you mind if I gave everybody a free course that I just love to give out? A real estate investing course?
Yeah, no, thank you.
Of course, Dustin, lay it on us.
Yeah.
So I literally want my mission in life now, because I don't have to work, is to help 1 million people to invest in real estate. I'll give you my real estate investing course, show you everything of how to build a business, find anywhere in the country and make passive income that I love to do with the properties. If you text the word rental, RENTAL, rental to 33777. Text the word rental to 33777, or you can go to masterpassiveincome.com/free course. All one word, masterpassiveincome.com/free course. And I'll literally send it to you, show you how to quit your job, even with the properties. You can even find me on my podcast. So I've been doing my podcast since 2016. It's called Master Passive Income. 2 million downloads now. It's literally like 90% just me teaching how I do this. You can even find me on Instagram. Funny enough, even though I'm a little older, in general, I like being on Instagram. I get DMs all the time. You can find me, Dustin Heiner, the Dustin Heiner. And guys know I'm not that arrogant to be the only Dustin Heiner. It's the only handle I could come up with on Instagram. But yeah, so any way that people want to reach out to me, I just love. And now my mission is to help 1 million people to invest in real estate.
Awesome, Dustin. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm glad we connected with you out in Texas. And thanks for spending time with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for listening and watching the Truly Passive Income podcast. If you liked the show, if you think it would be useful for someone else, the greatest compliment that you could give us would be to share the episode, leave a comment down below, or leave us an honest review. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to let us know down below. And remember, with truly passive income comes freedom of time, place, and the freedom to pursue your higher purpose.